Hi everyone, I'm Donald Dunham, and I'm a professor of architecture at Philadelphia University, and I've just spent the last hour and 45 minutes driving from Philadelphia.
Thank you. Welcome.
And I'm Annette Giesecke, and I'm a professor at University of Delaware, and I'm a scholar of utopianism and classicism.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll start. We haven't worked out who's going to say what, so I guess we'll just say whatever as it comes to us. Our project is entitled Utopia Above the Law, and it is a gallery installation, and the purpose of it is didactic, that is, regarding the nature of utopias and utopianism, critical of urban projects generally, and of utopian urban projects, and also, and importantly, participatory.
Wait, I'm sorry, what was the last thing you said?
Participatory.
It's critical of participation,
it's critical of...
there was a sequence of critical of, and then...
Yeah, just participatory, okay. That is...
Got it.
It's important that the residents of the imperfect city, who we conceive of as visitors to the museum, actually engage with this. That is, it's not just us preaching to someone. We're trying to be provocative and pull people in into this. And is there any way to actually not have this direction? I think that's usually part of it.
I don't know. It's possible. Let me see. Do you want to continue to describe the life?
Yeah.
Okay.
This project really begins with the beginning of any utopian project, which is the establishment of a boundary. Because a utopia, and these are all utopian schemes, two of them specifically urban, well actually all three of them urban, you first need to define your boundary. That's essential in any kind of utopian project, because a utopia is essentially, it has to be differentiated from the not ideal. So there cannot be a utopia or a conception of one without its opposite, dystopia. And in the case of this city, which is housed in the museum, the boundary is the museum itself, or the museum's walls. Good?
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to jump
closer? No, you're...
So the examples that we just had up on the screen are the city of Miletus, the city of Olympus, an ancient Greek city, laid out a Greek grid pattern after Hippodamus of Miletus was the first to sort of schematize city plans in this manner. But
this one on the left?
Yeah, one can actually see a prominent city wall. So, you know, all of these great cities are
this would be the city wall?
Yep, okay. Exterior wall. The image in the middle is actually a schematic of the shield of Achilles in Homer's Iliad. And if anyone has read their Iliad really carefully, in the center of Achilles' shield are two cities, a city of peace and a city of war. Dystopia and utopia, both cities are walled, but we're just illustrating the fact that utopia needs boundaries. And then finally, the final example is Tommaso Campanella's City of the Sun, which obviously is a bounded city as well.
And just to add to Campanella's City of the Sun, the description that Campanella made of this utopian construct is that it was concentric, and on the city walls, basically it was painted all knowledge. So everything that was known was painted on the actual walls. And these walls, and it's difficult to see, it says like on the Saturn ring, on this sort of outer ring, it says like laws were painted, and I think, and there's other information. So all knowledge, science, everything that was known was to be painted. So essentially, it was an encyclopedia, and the residents of the city, anything they need to know, it was there and visible for them.
Shall I advance
Yeah.
the slide?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So,
So this is the piece that we're proposing, where we have actually appropriated a wall, the long interrupted wall in the Beaverham Gallery. And what we're doing is, well, a number of things. We are actually showing the visitor graphically where the boundary of this utopian city is, which is the museum wall. And then we're doing various things with it. We've written on it, Utopia above the wall. And, well, what does that mean?
yeah.
Above the wall. Then, in typical museum style, we also have a barrier in front of this wall and some stop signs telling you, stand well back of it. And then written on the wall as well, do not touch or write on the wall. But in Utopia, essentially, every utopian, there's so many paradoxes in Utopia, but every utopian project is actually trying to recapture Eden, that state in which, that harmonic state in which we humans were living in harmony with each other and in harmony with nature. There was no need for laws, nor was there any need for boundaries. So a utopian construct it is, well, as I think we've talked about before, paradoxical on so many levels. So here we have this utopian city with its boundaries, and we are reminding the visitor of really what the goal of utopia is, that is, at least on some levels, this perfect harmony. But we, as human beings, when we build our cities, we need our boundary, and we'll start making walls, or rather laws, because we need to keep people in check. On the other hand, in an ideal city, you don't need laws. And you can, because we all just understand what the right thing to do is and so on. And so we actually, by saying utopia above the law, are hoping that the viewer will think about what utopia means and what that message means, which means if we're really talking about an ideal condition, we shouldn't need laws. Therefore, go ahead and ignore the string in front of the wall, go right on through, and actually, if this would be allowable to the museum, we would encourage people to actually write on the wall. And anything that they want, but one would hope that they would comment on the imperfect city as it is, something about, well, the imperfect city installation, or about their own urban experience, a suggestion for what an ideal city would be, and so on. And in this, we're sort of working off the, inspired to some degree by David Holzer and Barbara Kruger, and also
Chris Burden, and because it's our feeling that all we can do is make utopic excavations at this palisade, which is utopia. We can get there, but we can never get there to that place. So by this construct of this wall, it allows the resident to that we're reminding the residents at the foundational level of utopia that we have to, we're only utopian. We can't get to this actual place, and the boundary is the signifier of that. But it's ultimately, we're dealing with these edge conditions and allowing the residents to engage and get within that space, within that boundary, and then to comment on, well, whether, what's the meaning of law, and how does it relate to utopia? For instance, a question, can utopia have prisons in the ideal city, this perfect city? can we have prisons? And so laws become fundamental. So I think it's a reminder to the residents that, we're striving for this condition where we can't get there, but this is ultimately the goal. Additionally, we're proposing at the exit a collection box, which you often find turned the other way around, of course, when you enter the institution. But here is at the exit a link to the other piece on the wall with the stop sign. And by the way, we graphically using, and again, looking at the work of Kruger, Holzer, etc. We thought red was extremely strong because it is that stop. It has that allusion to stop. And the moving to the exterior as you're leaving the center, it's welcome to dystopia, and then of course a suggested entrance donation, and I think a play on the fact that the center doesn't have an admission charge. So.
So maybe I guess our final message with the entire project is that the imperfect city, or the utopian city, any utopian city is imperfect. It has to be because it's a human construct and imperfect for lots of other reasons as well. But imperfect is as perfect as it gets for us. So,
where did the donations go?
Well, they
go to these guys.
To the city.
To our intern. She really needs the money.
Well, I mean, I think that's a great question because currency is another. I think that's another topic that could be explored. In the perfect city, would we need currency or barter? I mean, I think as we approach that condition of utopia, sure. But as we get there, that in the classical sense of utopia, where you don't need anything, right? I mean, then we certainly wouldn't need currency. But that's something that hopefully maybe someone might develop their own currency, and maybe there's a currency that actually happens within the center itself. That as this thing gains momentum and people engage the physical space and actually begin to occupy and claim ownership or authorship, that there is currency and barter, that things move and change, perhaps. I would encourage it. So, but the real green stuff, I think,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see. How about education? Sarah, Jane, you all ready?
No, I saw it.
Everyone knows who you are. Introduce yourselves again.
I'm Jane Cheston. I'm the Curator of Education here at the DCCI.
And I'm Sarah. I'm the Borgnick Foundation Education Assistant.
So we are kind of presenting on behalf of education, but also presenting on behalf of the DCCA Guides, which is a volunteer guide corps that's really integral to what we do here. Unfortunately, they couldn't be here tonight, but they do have lives outside of volunteering here. They really put this proposal together, and Sarah and I are kind of thinking about how we can also include it in the rest of our education programming, and of course also support our guides, which are such a big part of what we do. So right now we're working with our title. So right now we're just kind of have a placeholder of calling this an orientation map. And really the idea is to, it started with the need from our guides to have a real physical component in the gallery, because spring is our busiest tour season, and we have incredibly diverse range of people that come here to the DCCA on tour. So we have a lot of community schools that come to the DCCA, all different community groups that are coming here to tour. So we were talking with the guides about how we can have a designated space for our guides to use and also for education to use as kind of a consistent space in the gallery. And because all of our tours here are focused on an interactive and really discussion-based approach to touring, we wanted to think about not just kind of a place where a group could sit and look, but where they could really be physically and actively engaged in the process and what was going on, since most of those students aren't able to come to this process in the evenings, timing and things. They can really continue to participate in the growth of Imperfect City during the exhibition. So Sarah will talk a little bit about how we're going to do that.
Yeah, so basically, as you can see, we have this sort of general mock-up of what we envision the space to look like. Using one of the corners of the walls, we would have a large map physically on the wall, still kind of thinking of ideas of what kind of material to use for it. But the long side would be a blueprint of Beaverham Gallery, and then the corner would serve as a connecting point to the DuPont 2 gallery behind it. And it would also have the blueprint on that as well. We would sort of delineate the space by creating some sort of like a shelf that comes out, which could double as a storage space for some materials for this project here. And essentially it is a place where our students and our kids that take classes or any kind of visitor that walks into the space can sort of create how they envision Imperfect City to look like. So we would have a sort of storage space that is holding components of laminated materials, photos of things that go into the gallery as things are created, shapes, lines, just general images of things that you find in the city, buildings, streams, bridges, trees, or whatnot. Just a whole assortment of these things that have been laminated and have some sort of an adhesive or like Velcro material that can be used to place anywhere in the space there. So people can kind of create ideas. They can brainstorm what they would like to see in the space, what they envision inside of the city. They can create designs out of these things. And hopefully it's a place where visitors can kind of turn the idea of an orientation map on its head and flip that idea and it being some place that instead of the map informing you, you inform the map. And hopefully it's a place where people can generate ideas of what things that they would like to see in the gallery as the exhibition continues on. And in terms of something like a class or a tour, it'd be a great way for us to start discussions with the students. What would you like to see inside of here? Place it on the map. Why did you choose that? Why is that there? Why is that next to this? And you can kind of talk about the ideas of sort of like city planning, what you need next to each other, what components you need inside of a city, what decorative things. So it's kind of just a place for us to discuss with the kids, given the fact that the exhibit's going to change, we're never quite sure what's going to be in there. We always have something physical that we can work with the students. So that's kind of the general.
Yeah, so groups can also, or visitors can also create their own items so that they can, if they really want to see a bridge and there's a bridge there, they can draw a bridge, or if they want to create a sculpture, they can do that and add that to that space. And so it is kind of three kind of ways to utilize it, right? It has a facilitated component on a tour where a guide is really actively working a group through the space. There is a kind of self-guided component when a visitor or family is just here on their own, so that they have kind of these prompting questions in this space to get them started, to start thinking and start physically interacting with how they see the space. And then there's also how we use the space outside in a facilitated way outside of tours for things like the children's classes that we have here, which will be, one of those will be hosting in Imperfect City and having that kind of designated space for, so it becomes kind of a workshop space as well.
And then another component of the project is the documentation of it. So as the exhibit is open, we'll be periodically going in and photographing this map, after a busy day of tours, maybe on a weekly basis if it's kind of quiet, just constantly going in and photographing the space. And then you can see that small section off to the side of the map would be an area where we can have something sort of like a photo album or a flip book, something that people can go through and see the evolution of the city as it progresses over time. Since people will be rearranging things all the time, it'll just be a way for people to see the evolution of it.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah Jane. And Steve.
Yes.
You ready?
Sure.
All right. Steve Ruskowski, everyone, DCCA's preparator, an exhibition designer, and an artist in his own right.
This is done my introduction. My proposal is pretty basic in its beginnings, but it kind of starts with these meetings and just thinking about the basic necessities that we need to hold these meetings and what we'll need in the space that could be used in multiple projects or things that might come up in the city that are not yet decided upon or haven't really materialized in even people's minds, let alone in space. And that basic thing is seating. So my concept was for a bench-style seating. I'm loosely calling civic seats. I thought that was pretty cute. So that we could basically have something unique to the space to sit on for our meetings, as well as for other functions that might happen. And the design is basic in that it's based on bench-style seating. And I have a background in carpentry as well. I've created some benches of my own, and I'm just going for, like, at this point, basic kind of shaker-style bench. And I think there's some implications there as well. But they're simple, they serve people well, and they don't get in the way. They don't create the clutter of chairs, and I'm just also thinking about all that within the space, that we can easily push them aside if we want them out of the way, or bring them out. The other part of it, I don't have a didactic for it, but it would be that the edges would have angles. This would be basically 6 to 8 sections, enough to seat about 20 to 30 people. And so that they could be modularly circled up, and it would kind of be clear how they fit together, so you have a continuous line around. So there would be also a nice aesthetic to it, as well as you wouldn't have these open corners, and so you could neatly bring them together for a circular type meeting setting that we could use for these town hall meetings, which we've talked about moving into the space once the exhibition moves into the gallery. But likewise, you could break them apart, have them spread out throughout the space so that visitors could sit and contemplate different projects. If there was, if we have the festival, we could have it set up for festival seating. We could set it up for, meals at a table. If somebody was doing performance, showing a film, you could set them up stacked theater type seating, whatever's needed. So again, I think it's something kind of basic, but I think it's something that will be necessary, and it'll solve that problem before we get into the gallery and think, oh man, we have to put like all these chairs in there for different events. And we might need extra chairs at times, but I think it would kind of have a it would be a start for the seating, and I think it would be centralized, and it could be designed to fit the space too, as far as color and things like that. I haven't really decided on that. I was kind of waiting to hear more on the proposals before thinking too much about finish. Yes?
I love this idea, and I was just finishing up a project with my students where they spent the semester designing flat pack benches, and the benches that they've designed are designed so that you can collapse them with no tools, move them around, and set them back up with no tools. So it might be a nice tie-in to consider, in addition to considering how they're arranged, how they're sort of collapsed and repurposed and moved around in sort of interchangeable parts, so that all the bench, legs are all the same and all the bench tops are the same, but you could have a flat stack.
Yeah.
So that would be an
that'd be great. I'd love
interesting
to see the design,
component.
'cause that's like the one other component that I've been thinking of, like might not always be necessary, but like maybe we do need them to be even more modular, be hidden more easily if we want them.
That's very cool.
Where would you source the wood?
Where do we source the wood? At this point, I just planned on purchasing from lumber supply. I had considered repurposing materials, but at this point, just to get the proposal in, I was going that way. But just for consistency in building, and because of the amount of lumber I would need, based on 8 benches, probably 6 to 8 feet each. It's a fair amount of lumber. So I just anticipate some problems finding enough consistent wood to work with. Not saying it's not possible, but there's only so much time to create the project, So.
Right.
That's the long answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Steve.
Thank you.
Ashley, want to step up to the mic?
Right, Museum of the Hand. Well, 45 states of our union have adopted the Common Core curriculum, which does not require the teaching of cursive handwriting anymore. So what they say is that by the 4th grade, keyboarding skills are required for a student to type 1 page of text in a single setting. And teachers no longer are required to teach handwriting. So in the future sitting, nobody will ever know how to write Latin script, which is what our cursive handwriting is, because your signature will be done through a QWERTY code or some other form of digital signature. You will know how to do this, but you won't know how to do this. So, what the Museum of the Hand has done is we've come back from the future, and we are creating an installation and workshops in order to teach people the glory of Latin script. So, what this piece is going to do is it's a combination of installation and workshops, like I said, where there is this piece, where there is this thing which I'll show in a minute called the cursive machine, which is an interactive machine that will actually write Latin script based on the keyboard input, which is constructed already. And this whole thing, there will be a desk with the keyboard on it. It'll all be enclosed within a scrim material, about 8 feet by 12 by 4. And so you can sort of have this separation from what's going on around, but you're still sort of connected to what's going on around, because you're sort of, in reverence of this Latin script. And it's also sort of a one-to-one sort of educational model. So this is sort of a model of what the piece would basically look like. Now the cursive machine itself, if I can get this to work, I think there's a link in here. A small LCD screen, which you can be able to see what you're typing up to 10 characters. So the idea is that you can learn how to write your signature in this Latin script because you no longer know how to. So this just shows a little bit of documentation. See, there's other photos down here. Yeah, so there's a keyboard. In this case, there's a keyboard inside. So there's your keyboard. There's the machine. Of a lot of electronics. So this whole thing will be mounted on that wall, which is encased in this scrim room, for you to go and learn, relearn, or learn Latin script, which you have lost because schools no longer require you to learn how to do handwriting. So in addition, the Museum of the Hand would also like to sponsor 2 workshops for people to do more hands-on training, which again in the future is people so they're living with their gadgets and their sort of abstract relationship to technology. That one is going to be a drawing machine workshop where people can come in and repurposing existing technology like motors and things like that, they will be able to create drawing machines. And then the other is going to be a basic electronics and physical computing workshop where people can learn how to use microcontrollers, switches, and sensors to get back in touch with how electricity actually works, to therefore know a little bit more about how our technology that we live with every day actually operates. So installation and a couple of workshops is what I'm proposing.
Great. Thank you so much, Ashley. Okay.
One comment. Ashley, please.
Oh, questions, yeah?
Might be really nice to make some of the signage for the show or for didactics, or, I mean, I'm just thinking of integrating the labor of the machine into the way, the ethos of the space. I don't know if you talked about that at all, or thought about doing something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm open for whatever. I'm open for conversation, or whatever people would want to do, to integrate it into, or whatever. So
Okay, thanks.
that's the thought.